Hello, everyone. Thank you for checking out this special episode of Really Dicey. This is Manny, and I'm here with.
Hi, I'm Mario Ortegon. I am one of the writers for the upcoming Journeys Through the Radiant Citadel. I wrote the adventure The Fiend of Hollow Mine for that.
So we're going to talk about all about this amazing adventure, except for the spoilery detailed stuff. So first things first. So how did you become connected to the journeys through the Radiant Citadel?
Right. So I had been working on a personal project of mine for a couple of years, but I say a couple of years very loosely because most of the real work that I started to do was done through I guess most of 2020. It's a world called Ixalva, and it's basically a personal project of mine that it's still sort of like behind the scenes being done, being produced. And it was basically that was me, sort of like me trying to take the fables and the stories that I grew up listening to, and like make them D&D. Um, the distinctive factor from that, from what I ended up doing for our journeys, was that you know I did that, and that sort of grabbed the attention of Ajit and Wes, and they brought me into the project. But once I was brought in, I explained to them that I was doing this. I had been doing it for a while, so I wanted to do something different while still keeping it Mexico, right? So the way that I approached that was to basically, the previous project was mostly focused on pre-Hispanic legends and lore, and with the adventure that I did for Journeys, my objective was to capture sort of like a more contemporary Mexican experience.
Oh,
So
okay.
yeah.
So all right. So you were given this assignment. Where did your mind go? So you had this opportunity to create this adventure. So where did your mind go? I know for myself, if someone asks me, "Hey, make an adventure for D&D," my mind will go in like 1,000 directions of story ideas.
Yeah. So this is, I guess this is true for a lot of the early things that I did. And basically the inspiration that I drew most from were all of these sort of like legends and stories that I grew up listening to. And in this case, specifically, The Fiend of Hollow Mine came from a story that my great uncle used to tell us when we were in his rancho, like late at night, in the fire, no electricity, um, and he would talk about owls being like just shape shifting like creatures of evil, and that if you were walking through because the rancho was so big, there were parts like you were at one place, and then to go to another you had to cross like like a foresty section. And he would tell us like, if you go through one of those sections and you see an owl or hear an owl, uh like don't look at it, just run. And I was terrified. I remember very distinctly just like walking through those places at night and just like looking around to see if I saw or heard an owl. And that is sort of like a very common belief in rural areas in Mexico. It kind of like dates back to a lot of the Spanish influence, uh, like when Spanish religion, Catholicism, came and sort of like syncretized a lot of the beliefs of ancient Mexicans. They sort of took a lot of what the what the things that were related to magic and sorcery. They basically like related that to evil and like the devil and stuff like that. So that story specifically stuck with me for a while, and I wanted to do a sort of horror story. So that's where I went. That is the direction that I decided to go. That was sort of like the seed that created the Fiend of Hollow Mine.
Okay. Generally speaking, what would you say your adventure is about? I know it's a level 4 adventure.
Yes. So the basically the story starts um outside a very big city, like in the rural areas of a very big city, and the city is called Sansitlan, and it basically has players investigating the origin of a supernatural disease that is um causing super like magical cold on people. Everyone who catches it is told, or sorry, everyone who catches it tells of like a strange cold wind that inflicts this malady. And the players sort of have to investigate its origin, and the involvement of a fiend is something that is relayed to them early on, because the locals have sort of already done some groundwork when they start the adventure. However, they are sort of like worn thin with having to care for the people who are sick. um so by the time the adventurers arrive, they come at the perfect time to be to help these people deal with the creature that is um creating this supernatural uh I guess disease slash curse. That
Hmm.
is one of the questions in the adventure. um it's part of the investigation of figuring out what this is and how it works. Um, so that the journey basically takes them through one of the mines of the region, eventually leads them into the city. Um, and by the time they arrive, they sort of see this massive celebration happening with the in a celebration called the Night of the Remembered, in which the people sort of commune with their dead ancestors by honoring them with an ofrenda. So there's a lot of revelry and people in masks and confusion happening, as is usual for a big sort of festival. And the players have to sort of navigate that while tracking a very dangerous entity, not of this world.
Hmm. Let me ask you a question about the world building for the Radiant Citadel. It looks like the book itself is a construct of different stories that are inspired by different mythologies from around the world. So when you wrote your story, uh, how much of that part of what you wrote is part of the Radiant Citadel? Like, so like I'm trying to like picture what the area would be like. Is it all
Sure.
is all the mythologies mixed in, or it's just sort of separated?
Yeah, so the Radiant Citadel is basically the hub location that joins all of the adventures together. And it is this massive city in the ethereal plane. It is one of the few, if not the only, safe place to be found in that plane. And it is basically this magical crystal with the husk of a dead creature wrapped around it, that people found and sort of realized like that way back. That place used to serve as a home for an ancient civilizations. And the people who found that place and sort of revived that culture and like made it a city to be lived in again are the peoples from all of the cultures represented in the book. So in a way, the Radiant Citadel is sort of like a diaspora of all of the locations that we are presenting. There's people from Sansitlan there. There's people from Tletepec, um, from God's Breath, the location created by Aaron Roberts. So all of the locations sort of have connections to the Radiant Citadel, but in a way, the Radiant Citadel has evolved to be its own sort of entity and culture. You know, sort of incorporating elements from all the others, because that's impossible not to if it was founded uh, by people with those connections.
Okay.
But yeah,
So would you say it's kind of like a interdimensional, like New York City, where
yeah,
it's
definitely.
pretty much a city where it's really it's its own thing. It's very different from a lot of others, mostly
Yeah,
because there's like different sections of different communities and different cultures all around and all a part of New York City. So something like
yeah,
that, would you
yeah.
say?
Yeah, it is kind of like that. There's definitely an element of when you think of New York City, there's a lot of baggage that comes with that. So I don't want I don't want to make like a one-to-one
Mm.
comparison, but there's there's also the beauty of all these people coming together and creating their own sort of like flourishing and new communities based on this place. The Radiant Citadel also has this um kind of like peaceful air to it. There's a lot because the auroral diamond, which is this gem, this enormous crystal that sort of sustains all life around it. Um, the magic of that is tied to healing and tied to this. It creates this spirits that represent each of the cultures, call it the Dawn Incarnates, and they sort of act as the wheel for each of the peoples who have contributed to the Radiant Citadel. And because of all of these elements, the society in the Citadel evolved to be sort of one of cooperation and one of mutual help. And it is a place of hope, of respite. There's crime is very low, because every citizen's needs are sort of uh, taken care of, mostly. So there's a lot of intrigue based. There's even an entire faction within it that is dedicated to trading secrets. So there's a lot of intrigue and a lot of other means of you know connecting that location to adventure, which is basically existing through the different cultures that connect to it. But the citadel itself is sort of this very um it has a society. The way that I like to think about it is that it's almost a place to aspire to, like that there's a lot of things that we wish like our society was like, and that sort of also makes it a place worth protecting for the adventurers. um and yeah, I mean, if I don't know if you've ever seen Ajit's takes on it. He has tweeted at length about it, but there was a lot of inspiration on like solar punk and hope punk literature and tropes to make it sort of a place where it is a place to go and be at peace before you go out and you know go to the other places to
Mm.
look for adventure. There's also, so one of the elements that connects that place with the other locations is that um they basically have a group of people that are dedicated to sort of providing um, relief and aid to societies that need it. And one of the many hooks that you can use in this book for that adventure is that characters can be part of that organization, and they can be sent and sort of like um, you know go and help people where they are needed. But it also comes with some I suppose it comes with some level of responsibility, because they do have a set of rules that they abide to. They're not allowed to interfere, sort of like politically, in the places where they go to. Uh, they are basically more of a humanitarian aid body that exists within the Citadel. And if that is something that the players like to explore, being that sort of like members of a diaspora that exists to help other societies, they can be that in the Radiant Citadel.
Mm. Um, so this adventure you mentioned that it's inspired by Mexican mythology. Um, so I've noticed in media nowadays that we're starting to see more and more pieces of Mexican mythology, either in like Disney animation or even like the one of the James Bond movies recently had a beginning took
Right.
place in a festival.
Yeah.
Um, what would you say? are there like the differences, or what makes Mexican mythology unique compared to maybe other mythologies out there?
Good question. I think there's a lot of so I guess in general in Mexican culture there is a lot of making the best with what you have. So a lot of our mythology and a lot of our stories take place in times of hardship, because the country has a history of hardship, and having that sort of be part of the stories without taking away from heroic moments and cool moments, and that was something that was important to me while making the adventure. It is inspired by large Mexican cities at the turn of the 20th century, so there is a lot of that sort of like early industrial vibe to the place. um and the backdrop of the all of the well, the adventure that happens in Sancitlan is a sort of like political a moment of political upheaval, and a society where the very rich are in power and the very poor are struggling a lot. And this is sort of like a it is a societal problem that is ingrained in the plays. Uh, the the gazetteer at the end, where you sort of like see all the details of San Citlan, its location, kind of goes into the history of San Citlan and how it evolved, which helps you understand how the place sort of became what it is. Um, but it is not a problem that can be sort of like fixed by adventurers coming and changing things, because that is unfortunately not how that works. So that is in the backdrop of the adventure, uh, and instead of the adventure presenting a location where you can come and change everything, it presents you with a specific problem, right? It presents you with a story related to what's happening to these people and how you can help these people uh, overcome this specific problem that they're facing. And I think that is true for a lot of the stories in the Radiant Citadel. There is kind of that kind of an air of having small heroic moments that aren't necessarily world changing. You are changing the life of maybe a family, a small village, stuff like that. But rarely in the book you will find a place where you can come and sort of like just fix everything because that is, I think that is the truth for a lot of the places that we as writers took inspiration from, and it was important for us to reflect that in the adventures that we wrote.
Um, so for anyone that wants to run your adventure, and maybe they want to do some homework, is there any
Yeah.
either books or movies or music, anything they can research in order to prepare for this adventure?
One of the books that inspired me even writing this adventure is it's a book called those below. It's called Los de Abajo in Spanish, and it is a product of its time. It is there's a lot of like very problematic things that if you look at them through a modern lens are gonna be sort of like um, difficult to look at, but that is the way that people in Mexico lived through the Mexican Revolution. And it is a story about basically a rancher who takes they are wronged they are falsely accused of a crime they didn't commit, and they sort of go and join the fight for the revolution, but they don't actually know what that is. They just sort of do that because they now that's their life. They're an outlaw, and they join that life. And it's very interesting to sort of like explore. It's called Those Below because those are the people that changed the history of Mexico at the turn of the century, and it is very interesting to see through their lens of that sort of like microcosm of people fighting a fight that they might not even have known what it was for. Um, yeah, the book is called Those Below, and it is very, there's a I think there's movies made um, about it, and that was a big inspiration. There's an NPC in the adventure called Paloma. She's a gnome revolutionary that I basically took from that uh, from that book a little bit of that story, and I also took from my own grandma's stories from the place where she grew up, and turned them all together into that character. Um, there's also, well, I mean, there's a lot of classic Mexican movies uh, related to that time period. Uh, Many of them with Pedro Infante. Those were a big inspiration as well. Um, as for music and performing, like visuals, there is a video on YouTube that you can go and look at. Um, it is called, I guess, well, it's in Spanish, but you can look for it. It's called like folkloric ballet of Amalia Hernandez. That is the name of the the company, the ballet company that does it, and that is a ballet company that sort of like takes traditional dance and music and performance from each of the locations in Mexico and presents them in sort of like a big theatrical performance. And during COVID, they made those videos available in YouTube, and they're like the full performances of 2 hour long performances, and they're very very good. A lot of them. So yeah, I would say just in general, if you enjoy looking at and sort of like getting to know the culture, those are very good ways to look at the source of the material. There's always the more lighthearted, as you mentioned, the Disney versions of things like Coco, and there's a very good movie by Jorge Gutierrez called The Book of Life, that is also very very good. Um, what else? Well, I guess that James Bond scene at the beginning is a very good representation of like the parade
Mm.
that happens now on the Day of the Dead, and that parade sort of got started because of that movie. I don't know if you knew that, but that's
Oh, I mean, I
yeah,
know. That's interesting.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that is Day of the Dead has always been sort of like a more personal experience in Mexico. But when that movie happened, a lot of the people just enjoyed, like it was a big production. A lot of the people like looked at it, and they went like, we should do something like that. So yeah, and now it's an annual thing that happens, and that was also a big inspiration for the celebration in San Citlan. It is incorporated in the celebration, this sort of like big parade, and with large paper mache skeletons and dancers and acrobats and stuff like that.
Mm. You mentioned briefly about the art, and this section. Did you have a lot of say of what you wanted artistically your chapter to look?
Yes. So we were given basically just full control over the I guess over the art orders that we were gonna make, like the artist descriptions. And but there was always a bit of anxiety going into it, right? Because I didn't know who the artist was. I didn't know if they were going to understand the references that I was giving. I would provide as many images and references as I could, but there was always that kind of like underlying fear of like, what if I get someone who just doesn't get it?
Mm.
However, as you can see by the illustrations in the book, that was far from the case. The artist behind my adventure, is a wonderful illustrator called Adrián Ibarra Lugo, and he has done a lot of illustrations for Dimension 20 shows in the past, and I think, though I might be maybe misremembering, that he has done something for Critical Role as well. But you know, he's from Mexico, and he incorporated his own sort of understanding of the culture and his own sources to enrich and, you know, take what I requested and just like you elevated beyond my wildest dreams. There were a lot of like um things that I suggested in the art orders that were just kind of like interpreted in a way that was so it is so unique and so vibrant, and I am very lucky to to have to have him as an illustrator, because yeah, the art is beautiful.
Okay. Now, for those that that would be playing this adventure and kind of want like a sequel, you know, in some sort, is there anything coming up? Anything you could say?
Yeah, so we are releasing a companion product for this on the DM's Guild. It is basically a product. It is being produced by Anthony Joyce Rivera, who is an established author and writer for the DM's Guild. He has done a lot of products there, and you know, we, like a lot of the writers felt that we had more to say about the places where our stories take place. So the product is called Journeys Beyond the Radiant Citadel, and it has basically expanded um, location gazetteers for I think it's 7 of the locations, mine included. And you know, there's additional art, there is additional lore for each of the places. um I can tell you what mine in particular focuses in is that I know I mentioned briefly, I touched briefly upon the my adventure having this sort of like early industrial feel to it. um and I expand on that a lot more on Beyond the Radiant Citadel. I basically just explain how a city like that looks like. You know what, how that the magic sort of manifests, and how it facilitates industrial processes, and what does that mean. Um, there's you know, in the book, in the original book, there are like brief mentions of luchadores, and I wanted to take that and sort of like expand on it. So there are options in the book to use luchadores as NPCs, and you know, it is not in this book, but I want to eventually sort of like actually give the players the chance to play one. But there was just not enough space in this book, and I was like,
Mm.
so, yeah. For Sanslan, additionally, there's a city map in the in Beyond the Radiant Citadel, because in the original book there was because the adventure moves from outside the city to the city, and sort of like kind of like takes place in the Sansitlan region as a whole, not in the city itself. I had to choose basically between um, presenting the city map or presenting the sort of a more like regional map to give DMs a sort of idea of what the region looks like as a whole. So I chose the latter, obviously, because it serves the adventure better. But because Beyond the Radiant Citadel, my section of it is so focused on fleshing out the city, the kind of like urban center of it. I decided to include a city map for it that sort of tells you all the districts and just some of the adventure hooks presented in the book tied to some of those districts. So yeah, there's I think there's it is a good product if you want um I guess urban adventures as the focus of your game. I would say, and also luchadores, because they're there.
Well,
Yeah.
excellent. Is there anything about this adventure that I haven't asked you about that you wanted to share?
Um, I guess. Well, there's just there is a lot of uh places where the adventure can be. Sorry, I need to find a way to say this without being super spoilery. I guess there are big choices in the adventure, right? That's what I would like to say, and there's more to meet the eye, to what meets the eye, in the mystery that is presented in the adventure. So there's a lot of the inspiration behind what's happening has roots of on like family and like sort of like this kind of like telenovela family drama, and I hope people pick up on that and sort of like um play accordingly in the sense that not everything is just like let's just kill what's in front of us and move on. So I mean, obviously play what you want, right? But I hope those sort of like hints and nuances are picked up by players, and I hope they enjoy them.
Hmm. So before we wrap up, um, I just want to thank you for being a part of this,
Thank you for
and
having me.
I'm glad that this book is coming out. I I've been kind of, I don't want to sound like I'm dissing D&D, especially since we're talking about it.
Right, yeah.
But for someone who's played D&D since the '80s, I mean, the only thing they thought out of the box in a certain way was academe when it comes to different mythologies
Right.
outside of European mythologies. And
Yeah.
and I've been waiting for some sort of Spanish or Latina mythology mixed in a much stronger way. And
Yeah.
I'm hoping that this book will kind of open doors so that we can kind of go away from Faerun, at least the northern part, and kind of explore other parts of the universe much more fully. So yes, viewers, this book will come out on the 19th. Go to your local gaming store and pick it up. Mario, thank you so much for taking the time for this again. And yeah, everyone out there, be safe, take care. We'll see you soon.